The summer has been sweltering for much of the United States and Europe, where temperatures soared above 100 degrees. New data from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, shows this past July was the hottest on record. It matches the pace of the past 5 Julys, being the hottest since records began in 1880. Now, it's a new warning for policymakers trying to keep global temperatures from rising another 2 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. This is something that's really important to understand. This is why these 2 ticks of mercury actually matter. First, let's understand where we get the numbers. The 2-degree threshold was established in the Paris Agreement. It refers to a 2 degrees Celsius rise in global temperatures above pre-industrial levels, essentially before coal-powered plants and other fossil fuels became commonplace in developed nations. Climate change is not a new concern, by the way. News pieces like this one from New Zealand in 1912 noted that coal-fired plants added about 7 trillion tons of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere yearly. This tends to make the air a more effective blanket for the Earth and to raise its temperature. The effect may be considerable in a few centuries. Well, we now have more data for more than a century since this article. Here's what average global temperatures looked like in 1912 when this article was published. All right, this was average global temperature. It's on the same scale, -4 to 4 degrees. Take a look at this. This is what they look like in 2018. Just a 106-year difference during a period when the Earth warmed by less than 1 degree Celsius. The difference between this in 1912 and this in 2018 is less than a degree. We're currently on track to see temperature change 3 to 5 times this change by the end of this century, according to United Nations data. Joining me now is Michael Mann, Distinguished Professor of Atmosphere Science at Penn State University and co-author of The Madhouse Effect: How Climate Change is Threatening Our Planet, Destroying Our Politics, and Driving Us Crazy. Professor, good to see you here. Thank you for being with us. This news that this past July was the hottest July on record. July is supposed to be a hot month. What does the hottest July on record mean to you?
Yeah, thanks, Ali. It's good to be with you. It's especially significant because July, as it turns out, is the hottest month for the entire planet. Now, this might be non-intuitive to your viewers, but the fact is that the Northern Hemisphere has a lot more land. It has the major land masses. The Southern Hemisphere, mostly ocean. Land heats up more in the summer and cools down more in the winter. So as goes the Northern Hemisphere, goes the planet when it comes to the seasonal changes in temperature. July is the hottest month in the Northern Hemisphere. It's the hottest month for the planet, and we just had the hottest July. That means we just had the hottest month that this planet has seen for as long as we have been measuring its temperature.
And 9 of the 10 hottest Julys on record have occurred since 2005. I want to talk about this 2-degree thing. Yeah. It's hard for people to maybe understand because yesterday was several degrees warmer than it was today where I am. This 2 degrees Celsius threshold. The Washington Post analyzed NOAA data and found that several sections of the United States have already experienced a 2-degree warming. So help people understand, what does that mean? We've crossed a threshold. Do we come back from it? Can we fix it?
Yeah, and so, to provide some perspective here, 2 degrees sounds like a small increase in temperature, but that's the difference between a healthy person and somebody suffering a fever, because it's systemic. Your entire body warms up that amount. It's the same thing with the Earth. The Earth is suffering a fever, and what might sound like a modest warming of 2 degrees Celsius, a little less than 4 degrees Fahrenheit, corresponds to a major melting of the ice sheets, including Greenland. We just saw last month, the month of July, 200 billion tons of ice melted from Greenland, enough to raise sea levels by half a millimeter. That might sound small, but it's large enough that the human eye can actually see it. So we can actually see the amount of sea level rise that happened because of the excessive heat in Greenland. We saw excessive heat here in the northeastern U.S., in Europe. So what might sound like a modest amount of warming corresponds to an increase in the severity of these major heat waves, the melting of the ice sheets, the rise in sea level, and a whole host of unprecedented extreme weather events that we have seen play out in recent years, unprecedented floods and wildfires and superstorms and heat waves.
So when the president pulled the United States out of the Paris Agreement, let's just listen to what his rationale was.
Even if the Paris Agreement were implemented in full, with total compliance from all nations, it is estimated it would only produce a 0.2 of 1 degree. Think of that. This much Celsius reduction in global temperature by the year 2100.
All right, that displays a remarkable misunderstanding of the problem here, because I think people like you would celebrate. You'd jump for joy if we got a 0.2 reduction in temperature. We are barreling in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and as we've come to expect, what the president says generally isn't true, and that's the case here as well. If all of the countries, and that's every country now in the world that signed on to the Paris Accord, if every country makes good on their commitments under the Paris Accord, that will take what would be about a 4 to 5 degrees Celsius warming, a 9 degree Fahrenheit warming of the planet, and cut it almost in half. It doesn't get us where we need to be. We need to keep that warming less than 2 degrees Celsius, 4 degrees Fahrenheit. Paris gets us about halfway there. It gets us a good distance towards the path we need to get onto.
Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.